I am Daniel Reeves, 34 years old, a software engineer living alone in the northern suburbs of London. The house I rent is old, built in the 1930s. Red brick walls, gray tiled roof, wooden floors that creak with every step. It isn't scary, just empty. I chose this place because it's quiet, because I like working late, and because the rent is much cheaper than in the city center. I've never believed in anything supernatural. My mother reads tarot cards, and my ex once said, "There's someone standing behind you in the bathroom." I just laughed. As an engineer, I believe in data, in logic, in things that can be proven by reason. Ghosts don't fit into any of my equations. Everything started on a drizzly Friday night while I was sitting in front of my computer trying to fix the last bug in a project. Outside the window, raindrops tapped steadily, softly, like background music that slowly dulled my mind. The clock on the screen showed 2:47 a.m. I rubbed my eyes, leaned back in my chair, and then knock, a very soft sound, as if someone had gently tapped on the wooden door downstairs. I froze, listened. Nothing else, probably the wind or a branch hitting the door. I told myself that and tried to ignore it, getting back to work. But a few minutes later, knock, this time slower, clearer, evenly spaced, deliberate. I frowned, stood up, and walked down the stairs under the dim light. The living room was silent. I turned on the light. No one there. Outside on the porch, the street was empty, the yellow lamps spilling across the wet ground. The lock was untouched. The doormat showed no footprints. I switched on the porch light and looked around. Nothing. But the strange thing was, the knock didn't sound like it came from outside. It had echoed from inside the wall itself. I stood still for a few seconds, then chuckled to myself. "Daniel, you're just tired." I locked the door more carefully and went back upstairs. About 10 minutes later, I realized the study was unusually cold, not the kind of chill from air conditioning or a draft. It was a damp, heavy cold, as if something invisible had seeped into the air. Goosebumps rose on my skin. The computer screen flickered for a second, and I felt someone softly exhale behind my neck. I spun around, empty. No one in the room, only the faint rain outside the window. But as I started to sit down, faint footsteps echoed from downstairs. Slow. 1, 2, then silence. I held my breath, trying to analyze it. Maybe water pipes, wooden floor shifting, anything logical. But my heartbeat pounded like a drum. Then a strange smell drifted through the air, iron rust mixed with an old perfume. I had never smelled it in this house before. My throat went dry as my eyes darted across the dim room. And then that feeling came. So strong my instinct screamed, "Someone is watching me." I looked everywhere, the door, the corners, the reflection on the computer screen. Saw nothing. But even without seeing, I knew. There were eyes, cold and patient, watching me in silence. I grabbed my phone, thinking to call Alex, the only coworker still awake at this hour. But I stopped halfway. How could I explain? A knock and a strange smell. He'd think I was just exhausted. I sighed, forcing myself to sit back down, pretending everything was fine. But when the clock hit exactly 3 a.m., a loud, violent knock thundered through the house. Bang, 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 3 times. Precise, evenly spaced, as if whoever it was knew I was still awake. I froze. Every trace of logic vanished, because this time I saw it through the crack under the door, a dark shadow standing on the porch. Still, not moving, not breathing, just standing there, waiting for me to answer. The shadow stood motionless on the porch. No breathing, no sound, just a patch of darkness thicker than the night around it. I held my breath, slowly backing toward the stairs, my eyes fixed on the sliver of light beneath the door. Those 3 knocks still echoed inside my chest. Knock, 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 each one like a heartbeat reversed. I told myself, it could be a prank, a drifter, or a drunk neighbor. But that thought vanished when I noticed the porch light was off. I was sure I had turned it on earlier. In the darkness, the shadow remained, still as if trapped between 2 worlds. I strained to listen. No rain, no wind, not a single sound except the thudding of my own heart. I wanted to run, but my legs were rooted to the floor. I couldn't turn away. I couldn't look elsewhere. Something deep inside me knew, if I left, it would follow. I reached out, trembling, and grabbed my phone. Dialed 999. A calm female voice answered. "Emergency services, how can I help you?" I gasped, my voice breaking. "There's someone standing outside my door. 3 in the morning. They're not moving." The operator asked a few questions. my address, what the person looked like, but when I glanced back, the shadow was gone. Empty. Only the dim glow of the streetlights reflecting off the wet ground remained. I stood frozen, unable to believe my eyes. "Sir? Are you still there?" the voice on the line asked. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "I'm sorry. I must have been mistaken. There's no one there." I hung up. I didn't know why. Partly out of embarrassment, partly out of fear that if the police came, they'd find nothing, and I'd be the lunatic calling about ghosts in the rain. I went around checking every window and lock, turned off all the lights, and tried to go back to bed. But I couldn't sleep. The feeling that someone was still there, outside, or worse, inside, kept my eyes wide open. Around 4 a.m., I heard footsteps above me, soft, slow, crossing from one side of the ceiling to the other. I live alone. There's no attic. This house has only 2 floors, and the upper one is the bedroom where I was lying. My heart hammered like it would burst. I reached for the lamp, but it didn't turn on. The power was still on. My phone screen glowed clearly. Only the lamp refused to work. The footsteps stopped. Then a sigh. Long, hoarse, and so cold I felt frost form in the air beside my ear. I jumped up, threw the blanket aside, and switched on the overhead light. This time, it worked. The room was empty. No one there. I sat for a long time, drenched in sweat, forcing myself to breathe steadily. That smell returned, rust and old perfume. Stronger now, closer. I looked down at the floor. From under the bedroom door, light spilled in from the hallway, and within that light, I saw the shadow of 2 feet standing right outside my door. No movement, no sound, just there. I held my breath. I knew I wasn't imagining it. I knew every detail of that floor, of that light, and what I saw didn't belong to me. I backed away, searching for something to defend myself with. My hand found an old baseball bat leaning in the corner. Alex's birthday gift, just in case of burglars. I gripped it tightly. "Hey!" I shouted, voice shaking. "Who's there?" No answer. I crept closer, step by step, heart pounding out of rhythm. The feet didn't move. I took a deep breath, gathered every ounce of courage, and yanked the door open. Nothing. The hallway was empty. No one. Only that overpowering scent of old perfume so thick it made me gag. I stepped out, looked around, and froze. On the wall opposite, faintly written as if by a wet fingertip, were the words, "Don't answer the knock." I staggered back, shaking violently. This wasn't a hallucination. Someone or something had been inside my house. I ran downstairs, grabbed my phone, ready to call the police for real this time. But before I could dial, the sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Exactly the same. 3 a.m. I looked at the wall clock. The hands were frozen, not moving, but I knew it was that time again. I pressed my back to the wall, clutching the bat. The knocking stopped. Then a woman's whisper brushed my ear, so close I could feel her breath. Open quote, "They only knock when your soul is awake." Close quote. I screamed and spun around. No one there. But a freezing hand grabbed my throat, squeezing so hard I nearly fell. I thrashed wildly at the air, then collapsed to the floor. Everything went black. I woke up to daylight. Weak sunlight filtered through the curtains. Everything seemed normal. The door locked, lights off, phone beside me. I thought maybe I had dreamed it all. A nightmare from exhaustion, stress, caffeine. But when I looked in the bathroom mirror, 3 distinct bruises marked my neck, shaped like human fingers. I didn't do that to myself. I knew it. I told Alex, told my coworkers. They listened, then laughed, told me to take a few days off. Alex said, "You're probably just sleep deprived, Dan. Sleep disorders can make your brain hallucinate." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But that night, when I tried to sleep early, at 2:59 a.m., I heard a single knock. Knock. I didn't move, didn't answer, didn't breathe. A minute later, a raspy voice spoke through the door. Open quote. "Why won't you open?" Close quote. I jolted upright, heart exploding in my chest. No one was out there, just the wind. Just the wind, I told myself. But from that night on, I've woken up every single time, exactly at 3 a.m. No alarm, no noise, just my eyes opening, knowing someone is standing outside the door, waiting for me to respond. I moved houses, 3 times, hundreds of miles apart, each one peaceful, until one night I woke in silence and heard the same 3 knocks at my bedroom door. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't run this time. I just sat up, staring at the door. Didn't open, didn't speak. The voice whispered one last time, soft, sorrowful, as if from a world far away. Open quote, "You're still awake, Daniel." close quote, and then silence. But I know, it never truly left, because sometimes in the dead of night, I still hear it. So faint, 3 slow knocks, and every time I remember the warning. Don't answer the knock at 3 a.m. It's been over 2 months since the last night I heard the knocking. 2 months without a full night's sleep. 2 months where, whenever the clock strikes 2:59, I still wake, heart pounding, listening in the dark. Nothing. Only silence. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat echoing inside your skull. I've moved into a small apartment near Manchester, 6th floor, with security, cameras, and lights that stay on all night. Every part of me screamed that everything would be fine. But the truth is, I still can't escape it. I started recording myself while I sleep. Set a recorder beside the bed. I thought if all of this was just in my head, I'd have proof. Night 1, only the sound of my breathing. Night 2, a few creaks, maybe the pipes. Night 3, 3 knocks. Clear, slow. At exactly 3:12 a.m., I replayed the tape more than 10 times. No sound before or after, just 3 dry knocks, coming from somewhere close, but from no identifiable direction. I remembered that this apartment doesn't even have wooden doors, only metal ones. That sound shouldn't exist. It felt like something, or someone, was testing the limits of my sanity, inch by inch. And the worst part is, I'm starting to believe I'm not insane. I began to search. 3 a.m. knocking sound. Haunted hour. They only knock when your soul is awake. Old forums, deleted blogs, buried Reddit threads. People describing the same thing. 3 knocks at 3 a.m. Some said it was the woken ones. Wandering souls that visit those whose spirits still haven't slept. One anonymous post on Paranormal Gate made my blood run cold. The writer, username 3am visitor, claimed that if someone knocks 3 times at 3 a.m., you must never answer. Because it's them, the ones who died but don't yet realize it. And every time a restless soul remains awake within a dream, they knock, asking to be let in. Open quote, if you answer, the final line read, they'll know you're awake, and once they know, they won't leave. Close quote. I read that passage over and over until I knew every word by heart. My heart pounded as if those words had been written for me. The next night, I ran an experiment. I left the recorder running, set up a small camera facing the door. I waited. Lights off. Silence. 2:58, 2:59. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. The sound came from somewhere impossibly close, as if from inside the wall, not the hallway. I didn't open, didn't answer, didn't breathe. But on the camera screen, a figure appeared. Faint, distorted, like someone standing right behind the door. Thin body, head tilted slightly. And for a few seconds, a pale hand slid across the camera lens, leaving behind a fogged, wet trace like cold mist. I yanked the plug, cutting all power. Not because I didn't want to see, but because I knew if I looked any closer, I would recognize the face. Then the dreams began. Every night, the same one. I'm standing in my old London house before the wooden door. Someone knocks 3 times. I open it. Outside stands a woman in a white dress, her face hidden beneath soaked hair. She doesn't speak, just extends her hand, and in her palm lies a pocket watch, its hands frozen at 3 a.m. I wake up drenched in sweat. My real alarm clock rings at that exact moment, 3 a.m. The next day, I went back to London. I had to know. My old house had new tenants now, an elderly couple. I pretended to be an electrician doing an inspection. The woman opened the door, her voice gentle but raspy. "You're the previous tenant, aren't you? I've received a few letters for you." I froze. Her voice, it was the same as the woman in my dream. I forced a smile and asked casually, "Have you noticed anything strange in the house?" She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Only that sometimes we hear knocking late at night. 3 knocks, then silence." She added, "I've gotten used to it. The house used to belong to a girl who died in the upstairs bathroom in 1956. They say she never realized she was dead." The upstairs bathroom, the same place my ex once said she saw a figure in the mirror. I nearly collapsed. On the train back to Manchester, I stared at an unsent text on my phone. Open quote, "I think they're still here, but not in the house, inside me." Close quote. I didn't send it. No one would believe me. That night, I dreamed again. The same door, the same 3 knocks, but this time, I didn't open. I just stood there. The woman behind the door whispered, trembling, almost crying. Open quote, "I'm cold. Will you let me in?" Close quote. I shook my head. I knew if I opened it, I'd never be free. The door rattled. knock, knock, knock. Then her voice grew rough, furious. Open quote, you're awake. You owe us a soul. Close quote. I jolted awake, heart racing violently. The smell of rust filled the room. On my wrist were faint bruises shaped like fingers. The next morning, I received an email from an anonymous address, 3 a.m. visitor at unknown mail. No subject line, just one sentence. Open quote, they'll stop once you answer. Close quote. Attached was a short audio clip, 3 knocks. Exactly like the ones from my recordings, except for one difference. After the knocks, there was my voice. I never said those words. I never spoke that night. But in the clip, my voice was unmistakable. Open quote, is someone there? Close quote. And immediately after came a whispering reply. Open quote, now you're truly awake. Close quote. I threw the phone, ran out of the apartment, down the stairwell, through the long corridor to the lobby. But as I turned, the lights along the hall flickered off one by one. From the far end came 3 knocks. I froze, couldn't move. The elevator doors opened before me, and for a brief second in the reflection of the metal doors, I saw a woman standing right behind me. Wet hair, pale hand, crooked smile. I screamed, but no sound escaped. The lights flickered, then died completely. The last thing I remember was her voice, soft and soothing as a lullaby. Open quote, you answered, Daniel. Now it's your turn to knock. Close quote. The next morning, they found the elevator stuck between the 4th and 5th floors. Security said around 3 a.m., the system logged 3 unexplained door openings. No one there, no cell signal, no one came out. My apartment lights were still on, and across the living room wall, faintly written, were the words, they only knock when your soul is awake. They say if you ever wake in the middle of the night and see the clock strike 3 a.m. and hear 3 gentle knocks, stay silent. Don't breathe too loud. Don't move. Don't answer. Because maybe Daniel Reeves is still out there, searching for a new door to knock on. I am Evan Clark, a sound technician at a local radio station in Camden. Last week, we received a strange hard drive. There was no sender, only a small note stuck to the case, scribbled in pen. He's still knocking. 3 a.m. I thought it was a prank from someone on the horror podcast team, until I opened the drive. Inside, there was only one audio file, titled, open quote, reth 3 a.m. final.wave, close quote. Duration, 50, almost 3 hours. Date recorded, October 14, 2024. Owner, Daniel Reeves. I froze for a second. I remembered that name. There had been news months ago. A software engineer missing, his house left abandoned, no body ever found. Police said he may have left voluntarily. But now, this file appeared, time-stamped exactly when he disappeared. I plugged in my headphones, launched the editing software, boosted the signal, and pressed play. The first sound was a faint breeze, mixed with the clicks of a keyboard. A tired male voice whispered, open quote, 2:45, I still can't sleep, close quote. I shivered. Daniel's voice, deep, a little hoarse, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. He continued, open quote, I locked the door, set the recorder to prove I'm not insane. If anyone hears this, don't stay in this house, ever. Close quote. For the first 10 minutes, there was only breathing and typing. Then suddenly, thud! Thud! I nearly jumped out of my chair, headphones rattling. The sound spike hit almost 80 decibels. It wasn't random noise. 3 distinct knocks, evenly spaced. Then silence. I skipped to minute 17. Daniel whispered, open quote, I see it. Standing on the porch, not knocking anymore. It's waiting for me to answer. Close quote. His voice trembled, followed by slow footsteps, a door handle, a hinge creaking, then a rush of wind hitting the mic, lasting 3 seconds. After that, nothing. Just a low 19 hertz frequency, barely audible to human ears. I stared at the waveform, still running steady for nearly 2.5 hours. No speech, no movement, just silence, thick and heavy. I leaned back, wondering if the file was corrupted. But when I opened the spectral view, the frequency pattern moved. Not a display error. The waves shifted slowly, forming 3 faint beats, exactly 1 hour apart. 2, 3, 4, I chuckled nervously. Nice one. Who hides Easter eggs in a ghost file? But the studio was empty. Only the rain outside and the soft hum of the lights. I boosted the 3 mark by 300%. Immediately, the knocking blasted in my ears, clear, heavy, and deliberate. Thud, thud, thud. And after the last knock, a woman's whisper. Open quote, don't open, close quote. I ripped off the headphones. The studio felt darker than usual. Through the glass window, I saw a faint silhouette. Someone standing still, hair long, unmoving. I blinked. It was gone. I forced a laugh, inhaled sharply. Hallucination. Too many horror edits. That's all. I tried saving the file to forward it to my supervisor, but an error popped up. Open quote. Error, file in use by another process. Close quote. I wasn't running anything else, but the recording light on the mixer was blinking. The mic was still on. Recording. I checked the clock. 2:59 a.m. I don't know why, but I started trembling. I've never been afraid of my own equipment. I reached for the mic switch. The recording light turned blood red. Then a distorted voice filled my headphones. Daniel's voice. Open quote. Evan, can you hear me? Close quote. I froze. Impossible. I checked the metadata. This section didn't exist in the original file. The signal was coming from my live mic feed. Open quote. He'll knock, Evan. When the clock strikes 3, you must listen. Don't answer. If you answer, it'll know you're awake. Close quote. I jumped up, yanked the headphone cable out. The studio went silent, only the rain tapping faintly against the glass. I looked at the wall clock. 3 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. I stopped breathing. The sound came from inside the booth, behind the glass, not from the door. I turned slowly. No one there. Only the mic gently swaying on its own. A faint click. The software rebooted itself. Resher3FRFinal.wav began playing again in reverse. But this time, the voice wasn't Daniel's. It was mine. Open quote. 2:45. I still can't sleep. Close quote. I shut the laptop, pulled the plug, but the sound kept echoing, even with no power. The knocks grew softer, merging into a heartbeat. My palms were wet and cold, and when I looked down, 3 dark finger marks pressed into my skin, like something had held me from the inside. I left the studio that night. Didn't take my bag, didn't turn off the lights, I just wanted to get home. But when I opened my car door, my phone buzzed. A new message appeared. Open quote, new message from 3 a.m. visitor. Your turn to record, Evan. Close quote. I dropped the phone on the seat and hit the gas. Outside, the rain poured hard, dashboard clock blinking 3:03. Through the downpour, 3 faint knocks tapped on the car door. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't look back, but I knew it was there, right behind my seat, waiting for me to answer. When I opened my eyes, the clock on the table read 2:59 a.m. Somehow, I had made it back to my apartment in Camden, but every window was wide open. The wind drifted in, carrying a damp, rusty smell. My laptop, the one I was sure I'd left in the studio, sat on the desk, audio software open, and the file resy3amfinal.wav was still there. The file name had changed. Now it read, open quote, recordingnow.wav, close quote. I hadn't touched anything, but the waveform was still moving. I heard my own voice, mixed with electronic static. Open quote, Evan, can you hear me? Close quote. I shut the laptop, pulled out the hard drive, and locked it away. Tried to calm myself. It was probably just a virus or some cloud sync glitch. But when I turned on the TV to break the silence, every channel was static. Amid the hiss, a faint sound slipped through. 3 knocks. Then Daniel's voice, distorted off frequency, echoing in the white noise. Open quote, don't turn it off. You need to listen. Close quote. I unplugged the TV, turned off every light, and sat in the dark, my heart pounding. I told myself I was panicking. It was just sound. But the frequency kept going. Even with everything powered down, I could still hear a faint whine like a radio stuck between stations. And in it were voices. Not one, but many. Men, women, children, whispering broken words. Open quote. The door isn't closed. Stay quiet. 3 o'clock. It's here. Close quote. I grabbed my headphones, opened the recorder, tried to capture the sound from the air. When I played it back, something made my skin crawl. Within the static, I heard myself ask, who's there? And a voice answered, my own voice, hoarse and low. Open quote, I'm here, Evan, right behind you. Close quote. I threw the headphones to the floor, turned on the lights, scanned the room. No one. But the flickering light reflected on the wardrobe mirror, and for a second, I saw a figure standing behind me, head bowed. I spun around. Nothing. Yet the mirror still held that shadow, even when I wasn't in front of it. The shadow began to move inside the mirror, while I remained still in the real world. I could feel eyes on me. Not one being, but many. Dozens of invisible gazes from the walls, the floor, the dark screen. They weren't just watching, they were listening. I called Marie, the sound engineer. She picked up after a few rings. Open quote, Evan, are you okay? The higher-ups are asking where you are. They said your studio is still broadcasting. Close quote. I froze. Open quote. What? I unplugged everything. Close quote. Open quote. That's impossible. I'm looking at the live feed. The red recording light's still on and... Close quote. She hesitated. Open quote. Someone's sitting at your desk. Close quote. I felt my blood turn to ice. Open quote. Is it me? Close quote. Open quote. I'm not sure. The shape looks like you, but the face isn't clear. It's distorted. Close quote. The line went silent. Then came breathing. Not hers. I hung up, removed the SIM card, and ran out of the apartment. Camden was misty with light rain. I stood on the wet street, the dim streetlights reflecting off the asphalt like a mirror. I heard it again, 3 knocks, echoing from the walls around me. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from everywhere. I couldn't tell the source. I ran into a 24-hour cafe, desperate for human contact. A few customers sat scattered around. A middle-aged man looked up as I entered, his eyes foggy and distant. Open quote. You've heard it, haven't you? He said in a flat, calm voice. They only knock when your soul is awake. Close quote. I froze. Open quote. What did you just say? Close quote. He smiled faintly. Open quote. I was the one after Daniel. Now it's your turn. I heard your voice in the radio static last night. Your voice, it's still there. Close quote. Before I could respond, he stood up and left, leaving his coffee still steaming. In the rising vapor, I saw 3 faint fingerprints, black, just like the stains on my own hands. That night, I returned to the apartment. The laptop was still there, but now the screen showed only 1 line of text. Open quote. Listen until it stops. Close quote. I didn't mean to hit play, but my hand moved on its own. As the audio began, I heard hundreds of voices whispering the same phrase in unison. Open quote. We are awake. Close quote. The frequency spiked so high my ears rang. The lights flickered violently, the walls trembled, and from the crack beneath the door, someone knocked. Knock, knock, knock. I rushed to the drawer, grabbed the hard drive, ready to smash it. But as I touched it, Daniel's voice whispered right beside my ear. Open quote. It's not in the drive, Evan. It's in you now. Close quote. I collapsed, clutching my head as the knocking thundered through the room, through my skull. The sound became my heartbeat, then softened into a whisper, gentle, intimate. Open quote. Now you understand. We don't record them. They record us. Close quote. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. The laptop screen was dead, the red recording light off. But on the desk, a new file had appeared. No one had created it. Timestamp, file name, open quote, next1.wave, close quote. File size, 0 KB. But when I clicked it, I heard 3 knocks, and Marie's trembling whisper, open quote, Evan, it's looking for me, close quote. I shut the laptop, but the knocking didn't stop. It continued in the walls, in my head, in my heartbeat. Knock, knock, knock. 3 days later, I began to notice that the building I lived in was changing. Not in a way I could see, but in how it felt, as if the walls, the wooden floors, the air ducts were all listening. Building 47 Camden used to be noisy. Kids in the morning, music at night, footsteps in the hallways. But now the whole place was deathly silent. No doors opening, no locks turning, no TVs humming. Only the knocking. Every night, exactly at 3 a.m., I'd hear it echo. Not from one spot, but from multiple apartments at once. Steady rhythm, 3 beats, like a signal calling to each other. Knock, knock, knock. I asked the night guard, Morris. He'd worked there for over 20 years. He looked at me with sunken eyes. Open quote, I've heard it too, Mr. Clark. But I don't go near it. The ones who did never came back. Close quote. I asked, what do you mean? He sighed, staring down the endless hallway. Open quote, last night, apartment 204's lights stayed on all night. I knocked. No one answered. By morning, the place was empty. Everything still there, except the person. And the strangest thing were the 3 black handprints on the wall beside the door, close quote. A chill ran down my spine. That night, I tried to open my laptop to delete every file connected to Daniel, but on the screen, a new folder appeared, Building 47. Inside were dozens of audio files, each named after an apartment in the building. 201.wave, 202.203.wave, all the way to 210.wave. I played 204.wave. 3 knocks, followed by a whispering female voice. Open quote, I opened it, Evan. Can you hear me? Close quote. I recognized the voice. It was Marie. She'd vanished from the radio station 2 days ago. No one ever found her. My heart pounded. I skipped ahead. Breathing, footsteps, and then a sharp screeching sound like someone being dragged away. I stopped playback, deleted the file, but when I looked again, the folder had duplicated itself. The new name, open quote, Building 47 backup, close quote, and inside it, one more file, evan.wave. I didn't dare open it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room, trying to write everything down the way Daniel once did. I turned on every light, left the radio running for company. Halfway through, the broadcast distorted. The anchor's voice warped into static. Open quote, breaking news, 4 more residents from Building 47 Camden missing. Police found black hand-shaped marks near the windows, no signs of forced entry. Close quote. I stood up and looked through the peephole into the hallway. Dark, no light, no sound. But at the end of the corridor, a door stood slightly ajar. A faint blue glow spilled out, and for a second, the silhouette of a woman stood in the doorway. Her hair was wet, clinging to her shoulders. Her head tilted slightly, as if listening to something inside the apartment. Then she turned toward me, slowly, inch by inch, and smiled. A smile that didn't belong on a human face. The mouth stretched too far, the eyes empty, as if her skin were being pulled by invisible hands. I stumbled back. My door slammed shut on its own. The next morning, when I stepped outside, the other apartments were sealed. Yellow police tape stretched across the hallway, except it wasn't printed with words. Just blank, smooth fabric, fused to the wall like it had grown there. A man from 209 peeked out and whispered, open quote, you hear the knocking too, don't you? Close quote. I nodded. Open quote, don't open. They knock to find who's still awake. If you open, they'll take your place. Close quote. Before I could ask more, he slammed his door shut and locked it. I noticed his hands, 3 black marks burned into the skin. That night, I heard footsteps above me, slow, deliberate, 1, 2, 3 steps, then stillness, then knock, knock, knock. I knew the apartment above was 302, one of the sealed ones, but the sound came from there. When I lifted my phone to record, the knocking shifted, now right behind me. I turned. The bathroom door was ajar, dark as a pit inside. On the mirror, faint letters appeared, traced in moisture. Open quote, when you hear them clearly, it means you're next to be knocked for. Close quote. I froze, rushed to wipe the mirror, but the words stayed, etched deep like scratches. I packed my things, determined to leave that night. But when I reached the lobby, the front door wouldn't open. I tried the key, then my shoulder. Nothing. The door stood firm, cold, with no light leaking from outside. I called the police, only got a beep beep before static filled the line. Through the static, a woman's voice whispered, open quote, where are you going, Evan? We're still recording, close quote. I dropped the phone. Its screen said, recording in progress. From the hallway, the blue light began to spread, filling the dark. And within it, shadows emerged from every apartment. No one spoke, no one breathed. They just walked, slow, synchronized, like puppets pulled by unseen strings. I backed away. The elevator doors slid open, empty. I ran in and hit the button repeatedly. The doors closed, just as dozens of blackened hands brushed the metal frame. The elevator shook violently. Lights flickered, then went out. In the dark, the only sound was breathing, right next to my ear. Open quote, now you understand why they call it the hollow apartment, because no one ever leaves. Close quote. I screamed, pounded the door, but no echo came back. Only the triple rhythm on the metal walls. Knock, knock. I turned on my phone's flashlight. The dim light fell across the walls. Scratched words covered the steel, thousands of overlapping marks like clawed handwriting. Open quote, 3 a.m. visitor. Listen, wake up, close quote. Then I realized every word was written in my own voice. The sound came from my mouth, whispering, layered, echoing through the phone speaker, bouncing off the walls, merging with the knocking. The elevator stopped. The doors slid open, not to the lobby, but to Daniel's recording studio. The mic was still on, the red light still glowing. On the recorder's screen, a single line of text appeared. Open quote, recording Evan Clark, close quote. And from somewhere in the speakers, a soft female voice said, open quote, you've arrived. Now, don't answer when they knock, close quote. If you ever hear a knock at 3 a.m, don't ever answer it. This is Miles Varan. My colleague Clara Denton and I are here to tell you about the case that London police still can't explain. Apartment 47 Camden, the place no one ever leaves. I'm Clara Denton, investigative reporter for Urban Shadows. I don't believe in ghosts, but I believe in audio evidence. The kind you can't fake, because it carries the physical trace of fear. We began with the final audio file recorded by Evan Clark, a sound technician formerly with LDN Radio. The file was recovered from a half-burned hard drive, but only a 4-minute fragment was still playable. When I hit play, the recording room sank into silence. Then his voice came through, trembling. Open quote, "If anyone finds this, don't stay in that building. They knock when you're still awake. And if you hear your own voice inside the walls, it means they've already come in." Close quote. Then the recording cut off with a triple knock. Knock, knock, knock. After that, silence. No scream. Nothing. Just the sound of one final breath being drawn out of the air. We arrived in Camden at the start of September. Building 47 had been sealed off, labeled unsafe structure. The windows were welded shut, but I swear, as we stepped out of the car, the 4th floor lights were still on. Miles brought low-frequency recording gear, capable of detecting infrasound below 20 hertz, the range that makes people feel watched even when no one's there. He set it up by the gate, running in continuous mode. Minutes later, the monitor spiked at 3.03 hertz. The number sent a chill through me, because that's the exact frequency when a clock flips from 2:59 to 3:0. Open quote, "It's syncing with something," Miles whispered. "Like the building, knows what time it is." Close quote. We entered under special clearance. Inside, the air was so cold, our breath turned to mist. The hallway stretched long, walls slick with black mold. Every door bore handprints, 3 fingers dragged downward, as if someone had tried to hold on before being pulled away. I passed apartment 302, Evan's old unit. On the door, etched in deep scratches, were the words, open quote, "Wake when they knock." Close quote. Miles powered on the recorder. From inside the wall came a whisper, faint, but both of us heard it. Open quote, "Evan, you're back?" Close quote. I froze. That voice, it was Marie Hensley, a radio host who'd worked with Evan. Records said she vanished 7 days before he did. Miles turned pale. Open quote, "The sound's coming from the space inside the wall." Close quote. He shone his light, and we saw, between the drywall layers, a hollow gap so deep the beam couldn't find the end. Wires dangled through, tangled with strands of human hair. I gagged. We left the 3rd floor and went down to the basement. There, we found an old electrical room filled with dozens of tape recorders wired directly into the walls. All of them were running, red lights blinking, recording simultaneously. Each machine was labeled with apartment numbers, 201, 22, 203, up to Evans. Miles, trembling, pressed play on one. A warped sound rose as if echoing from underground. Open quote, "They don't want us to sleep. They need us awake to knock back. If you hear your own voice, don't answer it." Close quote. I looked around. The air thickened. Light felt like it was being drained away. Miles shouted, open quote, "Clara, turn it off." Close quote. But every light in the basement flared at once. All screens switched to 03 a.m. And from the walls, hundreds of knocks, all in perfect rhythm. Knock, knock, knock. I covered my ears, but the sound forced its way inside my head, not through hearing, but through bone, like a second heartbeat echoing in my skull. Miles collapsed, clutching his head. A sharp crack, blood leaked from his ear. Then I heard Evan's voice, so close, right beside my ear. Open quote, "Clara, if they knock, don't answer. They only come for those who are still awake." Close quote. I turned, no one there, only my shadow on the wall, and beside it, another shadow standing next to me. I ran out, never looking back. Miles was still inside. Police only found his recorder. On the tape, his voice whispered one last time, open quote, "They are sound now. They don't need bodies. They just need someone to listen." Close quote. 2 weeks later, I analyzed the data again. Filtering the low frequencies, I realized the 3 a.m. knocking wasn't random. It was Morse code. Translated, it said, open quote, "Stay awake. We remember you." Close quote. The broadcast was taken down within 12 hours. The Urban Shadows site was deleted. A single email came from Miles's account after he disappeared. Open quote, "Clara, don't sleep. When you sleep, they'll knock. They're still in the walls, listening to every radio wave, every breath." Close quote. I tried to forget. But sometimes, late at night, when the newsroom is empty, I still hear 3 soft knocks on the studio wall. Knock, knock, knock. And in the silence that follows, a faint voice comes through the speaker. Open quote, "He was right, Clara. They only knock when your soul is still awake. Close quote. Open quote. File recovered, last record Clara.wave. Metadata 21st of October 24. Close quote. Open quote. This is Clara Denton. If anyone is listening, please don't stop. I'm not sure how much time I have left. Close quote. I left London 3 weeks ago. I rented a small house in the outskirts of Yorkshire, surrounded by cold fields and heavy fog. No neighbors, no radio, no internet. I only brought a tape recorder to remind myself the world is still real. But I'm no longer sure of that. Every night, when the clock hits 2:59, I hear the wind change direction. Not wind. It hisses through the wooden cracks, 3 steady beats, like it's practicing to knock. Knock, knock, knock. I screwed the clock to the socket, took out the batteries, but the hand still moved. No matter how I covered it, how I smashed it, at exactly 3 a.m., the whole room still trembled, as if someone was walking around the house. I've been sleepless for almost 18 nights. A doctor in York told me it was anxiety disorder caused by occupational trauma. I laughed. How could they understand when every time I close my eyes, I hear Miles whisper beside me? Open quote. Clara, they're listening to you through the sound. Turning off the mic won't help. Close quote. I tried. I smashed the microphone, burned the recorder in the yard. But the next morning, it was back on the desk, untouched, red light blinking, recording the sound of my sleep. I started hearing versions of myself. When I spoke, another voice overlapped, same tone but slower, heavier, as if the sound itself was imitating me, testing whether I'd notice. Open quote, sorry, it said, but you're not the only one speaking anymore, Clara. Close quote. Each day, more cracks appeared on the walls, not from damp, from something scratching its way out. When night falls, I see faint blue light seeping through. Sometimes a shadow passes behind the wall. No footsteps, only slow, deliberate knocks. I played Evan's last recording again, just to remember that someone had understood this before me. Open quote, if they knock, don't answer. They only come for souls that haven't slept. Close quote. His voice rasped, but at the end, a new sound appeared, one I'd never heard before, a woman's soft laughter. I knew who it was. Marie. She used to read the 3 a.m. news. She once said, open quote, night is when radio voices lose their way. Sometimes you're not broadcasting to anyone, just into the void. Close quote. Now the void has answered back. Last night, I dreamed I was in the old Camden studio. The red recording light flickered. Behind the glass, Evan and Miles watched me smiling. On the walls, hundreds of microphones hung like eyes. And I understood. I wasn't recording anymore. I was the recording. My voice filled the room and they only listened. I woke at 3. No alarm, no dream. Just the knowing that they were standing outside the door. 3 knocks, soft, but each one certain, familiar enough to tighten my chest. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't open. I remembered Evan's words. They only knock when the soul is awake. But I was awake, and fear had never kept me so alert. I held my breath, pressed my back to the wall. Then, the knocking moved. Now it came from inside the bedroom. I grabbed the recorder, pressed the red button. Open quote. If anyone hears this, I'm no longer sure I'm real. They've learned to mimic my voice. Maybe what you're hearing right now isn't me anymore. Close quote. I trembled, but kept speaking. Open quote. I've realized they're not the souls of the dead. They're orphan sounds, frequencies that never die when the radio goes off. When a signal is sent but no one receives it, it keeps drifting until it finds a soul that hasn't slept. Close quote. And they knocked to ask, do you hear us? I cried, not from fear anymore, but because I understood, once you've heard them, you can't forget. I pulled the batteries, cut the power, covered my ears, but sound doesn't need speakers anymore. It came from inside my skull, a heartbeat played backward. 3 beats, over and over, steady, deep, knock, knock, knock. I looked up, across the ceiling. Rusty letters appeared, as if someone had carved them long ago. Open quote. They only knock when your soul is awake. Close quote. I turned the recorder on one last time. Open quote. If anyone finds this, take it far away from London. Don't play it. Don't edit it. And if you hear knocking while adjusting the audio, please don't answer. Close quote. I took a deep breath. Blue light began flooding through the walls. Someone was whispering my name from every direction. Open quote. Clara, it's time for you to speak for us. Close quote. I smiled and closed my eyes. Knock, knock, knock. Female voice continues after the device fully powers down. Source of audio unknown. Internal investigation note. Yorkshire Police, 2nd of October 2024. Open quote. No person found. Recorder still active. Battery intact. Despite circuitry removed, the device continued recording 17 minutes of static. At minute 18, 3 knocks were heard. Then, a female voice, confirmed to be identical to Clara Denton, said, "We are still awake." Close quote.